right. Certain meetings normally held at the municipal offices are being held remotely with adequate alternative means of public access, and where required, public participation provided in accordance with House Bill number 58 of the 193rd General Court, which extended the governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20 until March 31st, 2025. Meetings are typically broadcast on Frontier Community Access Television, FCAT, and are available on YouTube. So I'll stop sharing just so I can see everyone's lovely faces. Since we've got a couple new members of the committee, and I think, Charles, you guys have a couple of your contractors, other staff on as well, we might want to just do a quick round of introductions. So for those who don't know me, Christopher Dunn, town planner, interim town administrator. Julie, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Julie Chalfont, 1888 Building Committee, Finance Committee.
Many other hats too.
Tim Elchie, Select Board, and 1888 Building Committee.
I'm Charles Roberts with Deerfield Architects.
I'm Tom Barry. I'm an architect also with Deerfield Architects.
Kathy Sylvester, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee.
Hi, I'm Julie Caswell. I'm the Vice Chair of the Community Preservation Committee.
Welcome.
Rob Tedesco from P3, Owners Project Manager.
Jeff Squire, Berkshire Design Group with Q Riddle.
This is Jason Morey from EDM, I'm the electrical engineer.
Rich Santola from GNCB, we're the structural engineers.
Perfect. All right, well, thanks everyone. So pretty brief agenda. I think one item we have, Kathy and Julie are now on the committee as the designees from the Community Preservation Committee. Tim, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to discuss on that point. I was just going to mention, we have a grant agreement with between the Select Board of the Town of Deerfield and the CPC. There's a draft now available. I'm going to send that around some point soon so everyone can just take a look, but real simple, just sort of memorializes the conditions that the committee put on approval of the project, and has some whereases for why we're doing it. But that's pretty simple. I don't think we actually have any meeting minutes today. Charles, I don't think I missed those, but
no, I don't think we turned them around from last. I thought you actually created some minutes from last, maybe.
Yeah, well, we can sort it out, between now and the next meeting and figure out exactly where we're at with the meeting minutes. So that's fine. So then the next item on our agenda is just project timeline and scheduling. So Charles, you want to speak to that?
Sure. So I think working backwards, we were hoping for, late spring, early summer construction start. So sort of, moving back from that, we need to construct a calendar that works with everybody's schedule. I know we had some, preliminary conversation. I know, Jason, I think you had some preliminary conversations with Karen about EDM's ability to mobilize.
Correct.
And you were thinking, 3 months from a go date for design development documents.
Yeah, let's see. We won't really be starting for another. If we were to start right now, we wouldn't actually be able to begin work until probably the first to second week of November. And then with the holidays periods and everything going on, I don't imagine to be able to have that DD submission until sometime in January.
Like mid-January, late January?
Yeah, I would say
mid-January.
Not so sure about. I'm still waiting to hear from my the fire protection and fire alarm engineer on his
Okay.
availability and whatnot.
All
They
right.
were all away and on site visits, whatever, so I haven't even gotten anything from them yet.
I'm
Okay.
gonna ask probably a few times for clarification on, I guess, jargon. What is a DD?
So that's design development. That's the next. So there's like 3 basic design phases: schematic design, which we've completed in this initial with the cost estimate that was approved by the town meeting. Then design development is the next round of sort of working on the design, and we're going to get another cost estimate sort of partway through design development, and then we'll go on to what's called construction documents, and that's where we complete the drawings that are. And then there's the bid negotiation phase, which in public work can be 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. And then there's the CA, which stands for construction administration, which is where buildings being built involved and sort of represent the town's interest in ours. Construction.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Julie, design development, which is what we're just starting, is really a lot of heavy discussions about, the building systems. We start to identify and kind of bring into focus what the building is, actually going to get made out of. What's our detailed structure? What kind of HVAC systems are you going to end up with? We start to hone in on like, sprinkler design and electrical systems. So all that stuff starts to get, better cooked through design development, and then construction documents, which comes after this. That's where the real, nitty gritty details, and that's where all the specs are written, and that's where the, the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted sort of thing, where the committee, backs off a little bit and let the engineers, do the detailed drawings and prepare for bidding. But design development is pretty significant in making some decisions on what the building is, what it's going to be made out of, and how is it actually going to function.
Thank
Good
you.
description, Christopher. So Rich, what does that schedule work for you, thinking about kind of a mid-January completion date for design development?
That seems pretty reasonable.
Jeff?
Yes, that works for me.
Okay. Is this project going to require a site plan review process through the town?
Christopher, maybe you can respond.
I believe it does. So I think municipal offices within the Central Village Residential District do require site plan review, if not a special permit. So that's something to consider in terms of timeline. Yeah, going in front of that planning board.
Right. And so, Jeff, I mean, it's not that complicated in site design, but there's always, things to do. There's going to be stormwater tying into the town stormwater drainage, sort of ironing out the whole parking, site circulation issues and things like that. So that's something to think about, is what is the timeline for getting ready to submit for a site plan review, whether it's special permit or.
Good plan. Yeah. I mean, I think we've got what we need, and it shouldn't be too much effort, but there will be some coordination we'll need to iron out.
Okay. Is it too early to think about trying to target a date for that, or you want to think about it?
I think we could, let's see, we could probably look for a submission around the beginning of December, probably.
Okay.
One thing I'm working on, Rob, and I mean Charles and Jeff, is we have a small amount of ARPA money left, somewhere in the range of 60 to 65,000, that for reasons of potentially returning some CPC money to the CPC, or to act as a backstop for unexpected, like the parking that we didn't originally have in the plan. to try and use that as an ad alternate and have some extra money that we might be able to pay for the parking with, that's on the side where the addition would be.
Okay,
But
that's helpful.
that's to be determined, but I'm just saying that we have to spend the ARPA money, or not spend it, but designate that it's part of a project before the end of December.
Okay, well, I mean, we can sort of develop the site plan with the idea that that parking and that additional southern curb cut is in there as a pricing alternate through DD, and if it works, and
And
you know,
it'd be better to permit all of that work, at least to have that permit, so we can plan on that. and
right,
then
exactly.
Sure.
Split it up as part of the, yeah.
And I have a question about, I mean, I don't know that there would be a huge amount of savings, but is there any initial work that our DPW could do about, like, taking up asphalt and getting rid of it, and, you know, not having that cost be borne by the whoever the general contractor is?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly some things we can identify, and depending on their capabilities, you know, even insofar as utility stubs or any of those things that, you know, we might want to get into the site from the street, we could, you know, ask them to do if they're willing and able.
Mm-hmm.
But
I know they
certainly
have a lot of
asphalt
big
removal.
trucks.
Yeah.
I think it would be best and clean if we could, you know, whatever work we identify and agree to, that work be done before,
Right.
you know, the general contractor takes over, just, you know, clean slate. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so getting back.
Oh, sorry, I
somebody-
was gonna say, yeah, real quick on that, Charles. I was just gonna say, Julie was mentioning here while we were muted, so the planning board in Deerfield meets first Monday of the month. So if we could target, I think it's December 2nd, it's the first Monday, yeah. If we do want to try to do a site plan review by then, that would be the date.
Well, you mean to actually, well, do they need a 30-day sort of advanced submission? So that would mean having to submit on November 2nd or 3rd to get on that hearing agenda?
I mean, it's gonna be advertised. I don't know. Yeah, it may be just be a couple of weeks, but that would be your call, Christopher.
Yeah, let me just check in on what our timelines are for that, because yeah, it's gonna have to be posted.
Yep.
More than our regular 48 hours, so
Right.
yeah, take a look at that.
I didn't recall that it was 30 days, but I know there was at least 2 or 3 weeks in advance, just for
I was thinking 14, but
public notice. Yeah.
Okay. So the hope is to try and get onto a December 2nd planning board agenda for review, and then we'll see what the submission date has to be to be that date.
Right.
and Christopher, would you also just check to see about whether special permit is needed and what the ZBA, when they would need to weigh in on a special permit?
Yeah, I can double check that. I'm fairly certain they don't need a special permit. But yeah, let me confirm.
Thank you.
All right.
I think we also have, I think you might have planned on this, Charles, that the permitting fees would be waived because it's a municipal project, and we just need to know. Christopher will tell us what the select board needs to do, and or the planning board, and or whoever has authority on that.
So I know I had mentioned earlier the idea of 75% DD pricing. Rob, was that what you suggested last time? I thought that was kind of,
For DD pricing at what point?
yeah, a 75% DD pricing effort.
Yeah, I don't think we actually ended up figuring out when we were gonna do it. Do you think that's too late?
No, I think if anything, it might be, early because we want to make sure we have, enough information developed. I mean, we would typically do it at the end of DD.
Mhm.
So, DD is completed mid-January, and then we would take a couple of weeks and have the project priced out. And then we would incorporate value engineering if required into the construction.
Okay, all right. That makes sense.
Okay, so if we submit,
January.
so if we submit January 15th, we have the option of either, taking a 2-week break while the pricing is going on, so we don't overdevelop the drawings. It's you don't have to go back and redo work, or we just sort of proceed at risk during the cost estimating process, and then we catch up at the end of those 2 weeks, and we see where we have to recalibrate anywhere, and then push on. The first direction kind of, it pushes the schedule out another couple of weeks. The second option, you're proceeding a little bit at risk in terms of, pushing forward with the project before you have the cost.
The rest of the schedule, like, if you take those 2 weeks off, where do you end up putting out?
All right. So that's a good idea. Why don't we just try and say that, okay, so we're going to put the drawings out for pricing January 15th. We get the cost estimate back, say February 1st. And then maybe there's a week of negotiation on that, on sort of looking at the pricing, looking at the design. Then we would kick off CDs, the beginning of the second week in February, just called February 7th. And I guess Jason, maybe I'll go back to you, and what's an estimate based on your understanding of the project of how much time you would require for completed construction documents?
I haven't gone through all of that yet. You're at that point. I'm not sure. I'd have to go
Yeah,
through
I know. I'm
I
putting
don't
you on
have
the
anyone
spot.
else.
I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry.
Yeah, and I don't have
But-
I don't have information from my
Yeah.
other engineers as well yet. So.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a 2 to 3 month process. It's not a overly complex, large job. So
No.
we could just sort of, we could pencil in 3 months. I think that's a
Yeah.
good conservative time frame. So that would put us at the end of CDs at February 7th, March, April, May 7th. Complete CDs. And then say 8 weeks to bid. So July 7th, we'd have our bids.
8 weeks.
That's a lot.
Well, what do you see in these days, Rob?
5, 6 tops.
But then, so you get your
I'd
bids in,
budget 6.
you get your, so 6 weeks, but then does that include sort of like getting contracts all signed and getting, so the contractor's ready to get on site, start construction?
No, I'm talking central register advertised to general bids in hand, between 5, 6 weeks.
Okay.
Plus, yeah, 10 days contract. We can get a notice to proceed out sooner than that while the contract gets cooked, but
Okay. Well, it's probably like a mid-July construction start, right? Like they're on the ground and they're starting the demo and they're fencing off the site and getting their job trailer there and all that.
right. I don't know, my mind. I'm already worried about being out in bid now that we're talking May, June. Feel like we're gonna miss the wave. Impossible to be out to bid for, I mean, we were talking, ugh. March was aggressive, we knew that, but is April is not feasible?
Well, that would tighten up, we have to tighten up the design process by 4 weeks to do that. So, I don't think, I think that I can't see tightening up the DD effort any. If we got rid of our 2 weeks of safety margin during the pricing effort and just plow ahead, and then we shave 2 weeks off of our 3-month production effort from 12 weeks to 10 weeks, that would get you the April 15th.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, my gut says that we're at greater risk for putting things on ice for 2 weeks than working during the 2 weeks, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That 2 weeks in the bid climate could make a pretty significant difference. I mean, I don't know, I don't have an 8 ball on this. No one knows what the market's gonna do, but I know springtime's sensitive.
All right, well, Jason and Rich, what do you think about a 10-week production schedule for CDs?
For CDs, that's probably fine. Unless, except for you mentioned like the VE thing that we go, it depends on how long that takes.
Yeah,
If that's going to be some extensive thing where it's a complete redesign, then that can be
well,
issues. Like, so,
I mean, if it's a complete redesign, then you got other issues to
yeah,
deal with. But I'm thinking that, I think we have a pretty good cost estimate in hand. The design's pretty well fleshed out, and I would think that that the value engineering effort is something we would just fold in to our continued development of drawings without looking at a major redesign.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of on the same page. I think time frame, that's fine, but we work through those 2 weeks, not knowing what the cost estimate is, and we have to make significant changes because of that cost estimate. Then not only did you lose those 2 weeks, you probably lose another week of like undoing all the stuff that you've already done. So you kind of, hurt yourself more.
Right. But if we look at this project sort of specifically, the addition is a very straightforward, wood framed building from a structural point of view. There's not a lot of alternative ways to skin that cat from a structural perspective.
No, I think it does make some sense, but if there's other considerations, mechanical things that then force changes to the structure, or
Right.
something, I think if we're in a good place and we're on the mark, then it makes sense, but
Yeah, I mean, do we? How much time do you think we need, Charles, to just at least get upfront decisions on what this building's gonna be, like the systems, do we basically already know what this thing is gonna be? I know we've talked about VRF a lot, or do we have 5, 6 options that we need to digest before we let you guys plow ahead with design?
Well, Jason, I think the HVAC is pretty well delineated in narrative form. We know what the systems are going to be, right? In terms of MEP.
yeah, but there's a lot of work for them to do. That's what the conceptual level of this mechanical equipment like that. Really, I mean, there's
Well,
a
right,
lot
but
to look into, and things can change just because of his calculations and whatnot.
you mean, but could things
Because you have
change in terms of?
well, I guess the issues, I guess, from what I do understand of what he was looking at, it's areas like where he can place equipment and stuff. I think he's a little worried about that because we haven't had actual drawings and a way to really verify conditions. Right. So if he can't put things on walls or roofs, if they don't want to be visible or whatever it is,
Well,
I know
I mean,
there was
we've
some
had those
issue that he had there. He was a little scared about that. That's all I know.
Well, he hasn't. I would like to talk to him about that because we do have dedicated areas for mechanical equipment called
Okay.
drawings, and we've had conversations about sealing integrated fan coil units with integrated HRV systems built into that. So I mean, we've had pretty extensive conversations in that direction. So
Yeah. Unfortunately, both those guys are out on site visits today, so that's why
yeah,
they're not
understood.
here.
Yeah, they're not here to chip in, chime in, but I
The
know
electrical
from the
portion I can tell you is relatively easy because
yeah.
we're ripping everything out and starting from scratch.
Right. And I think we're in a good place with the HVAC based on all the conversations I've had,
Yeah.
Yeah.
with that part of your team.
So
Tim?
question, would doing a cost estimate part at 75 and continuing to work while that's going on, would that save us any time?
It would take us more time.
Would take you more time?
Yeah, because if we have to come up and set up drawings so that someone can review it, that's time that's taken away from actual design work.
Yeah, I agree. And then,
Okay.
I think that it makes sense to get to the end of design development. That's the place where a cost estimate is typically done. And that's going to have the maximum amount of information on the drawings.
Sure.
I think it's between DD and CD where if you have to start looking at value engineering, it's the time that it makes sense.
I was just curious if 2 weeks is realistic or if it's too long or if it's too short to do the cost estimating and the value engineering. I forget what it was like on the library project Julie and I were involved in, but what are your thoughts, Rob?
You're saying, is it too long for an estimate to be done in 2 weeks?
I mean, yeah, is 2 weeks a good time? Is it too much? Is it too little?
I mean, it's pretty standard. Yeah. I
Standard?
mean,
Okay.
sometimes they can take even longer depending on who you've hired, but yeah, I mean, it's 2
Yeah.
weeks is a typical turnaround. And then, yeah, it's another few days of, going through line by line and having a reconciliation meeting or, it can be involved.
Right. I mean, our cost estimator, she's very good. She's got the project all set up. She's gone through a very rigorous schematic design cost estimate, line by line with all the divisions. So she's got all that work set up and ready to go.
But the reason why I was asking about HVAC is, do we basically know what it's gonna be is, I think the message across all trade sub-consultants is, obviously given the budget constraints, every design has to be practical. And I think we need to agree, especially on the town's end, who's gonna be maintaining this building, who's gonna be touching thermostats, there needs to be an understanding of how the building's gonna work, but I mean, practicality or practical has gotta be the theme. We know energy codes are more stringent than ever. I'm just worried about, because I'm worried about controls, electrical costs. The two killers that we see on all of the jobs in the last 5 years are HVAC and electrical. We all know that. Those are the two most expensive trades to build. But if we can keep those designs practical, hopefully we can avoid, a VE exercise to pull out things that, the code's not demanding or things that we know are just aren't going to be controlled correctly or require a PhD to run or fix 2 years down the road when the
Right.
system's working,
Right.
I'm already thinking about Cat6 cabling and stuff that we probably don't even need. We're not going to need data jacks every 8 feet on every room of this building because no one ever plugs into them. I'm just thinking stupid things like that. So, but maybe that's obviously another technical meeting that we could have just dedicated to things like that. What do we need for, access controls, communications, and, really get a clear message to you, Charles, and your whole design team of what they don't need, what they really need.
Right. I think that's a great suggestion, Rob. Jason, we should get together with, EDM's design team within the next, week or so to have that conversation.
So just so you know, like we don't do design for telecommunications and security and access and stuff. I don't know if you have someone you use technically for that. There's people I can reach out to, but like that's not something we do as a It's just, we just don't do that type of actual design work. We don't specify that, type of equipment.
Well, in terms of like mechanical systems and
Mechanical,
controls,
yep, but yeah.
and you
I'm talking
know,
about, like, he had mentioned data
straightforward,
jacks and
not
whatnot, so that's all.
yeah, straightforward design. It's user friendly.
Yeah.
You don't need a PhD to run it.
No, it's about, like he had said, you alluded to, and the problem that we've run into now, it's energy code that requires certain us to
Right.
use a lot of this stuff.
Right.
So there is no real option for us to do other things.
Yeah.
Because
We all
the thing
wanna
is,
just
you
have a
ask
light-
about,
Yeah, we all just want to have light switches on and off, but we can't do it
yeah,
anymore.
it just didn't work that way anymore. And you can have the light switch, but it's still the other extra wiring you have to add anyways. Like, it still is, it actually makes it even more.
Yeah.
I've just gone through this exercise for the fire station in Williamstown, where we are using an N light system, which is basically it's Cat 5 wiring that's run from all the light switches to the fixtures themselves and whatnot. And they didn't want to, they were trying to get rid of using that. But as we had to show them, it's like actually even more expensive to go to a traditional wiring method now, because you still have to provide all these different like sensors, whatever you have to, all that has stuff to work. So if you don't use the Cat 5, you end up just pulling like extra conductors to make that work. Right. So it's still stuff that you have to do. And
Okay.
everywhere in Massachusetts, it's just going to get worse and worse. So
Seems like it. Yeah.
because they're moving to the 10th edition now. So for anything that's any permits that are pulled after January like 10th.
So in the short term versus the long term, and I'm going to ask stupid questions here, so just forgive me. Cat 5 versus Cat 6, is there some advantage in the future, 5 years from now, that having Cat 6?
It's my bad for using the wrong terminology. It's all Cat 6 now.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah,
we're good.
Yeah.
Aren't they basically the same? It's just it's how long the run is will dictate whether it's 6 or 5. I don't know if there's a
The 5 is just, it's an older model that they used to have. They've just progressed. Like everything else, it's a
4G,
little bit outdated
5G.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just, I've been doing this a long time, and then before this, I was an electrician pulling stuff like that. So I still sometimes have the wrong terminology in my brain.
So I guess, do we want to just, for the purposes now of setting a schedule, do we want to just say, well, we'll go from DD straight into CD. We'll do our cost estimate. We're not going to get that far down the road in 2 weeks. We're not going to get so far down the road in 2 weeks that risk being, too head over. We get the value engineer, we get the cost estimate. If we have to value engineer, we incorporate that into the ongoing CD process. We cut that down from 12 weeks to 10, and that gets us the month that you were asking for, Rob, which would be a bid date of around the first week in April.
Okay.
When did we go out on the library, Rob?
Oh wow. I have the worst memory. God, I don't know. I'd have to look.
Rob froze. Everybody froze.
Whoop. Still there?
Yeah, we can hear you, Rob.
I think
Okay.
I think Tim froze.
I'm gonna have to look to see
Stinks.
what we did when we did Tilton. There we go.
Did I miss anything?
No, you're good.
The general bid deadline for Tilton is March 2nd. It's like that.
Oops, say that again. You're a little choppy.
Okay, sorry, maybe I'll turn off my video. For a second. Yeah, so on Project Dog, it says the general bid deadline was March 22nd for Tilton.
Okay,
Yeah, sub bids were March 8th.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, their contract's dated first week of April, so I just saw it. Okay, yep. Makes sense.
Oh, sorry.
I feel like we should try to push to get bids early April if ever possible. I mean, not bids, but to get the package out for you.
Get on the street, yeah.
Being like a month in that time frame might make a big difference. With how many bids we get.
Okay, and we're gonna have a good DD package by the middle of January, and we'll see where we are. And the design team feels like we could tighten up the production for the construction documents, we will. But I think it's conservative at this point to say, take the 10 weeks, have things ready for April.
And just real quick to circle back around on the site plan review, so it definitely needs site plan review. It does not need a special permit, and it's got to be noticed 14 days prior to the hearing. So that would put it somewhere prior to Thanksgiving.
and with a little notice, that the planning board might be able to make an adjustment of 1 week. So, if we were gonna do it on December 2nd, we'd basically have to notice it, but probably on the 15th or the 18th of November.
And that's when you would need to have the permit package submitted.
I guess, Christopher, you probably
Right.
know this better than I do.
Yeah, let me pull up the details because Amy always has to deal with this stuff, but
Yeah, I
Yeah.
recalled the same, Christopher, as the 2 weeks. So that would, we need to have everything in by, around Thanksgiving for that early December hearing. Which is fine. I think the only other question would be understanding if this would trigger the need for a stormwater permit or not. I don't know whether that's through, I think that's through the planning board as well, but I don't recall what the threshold was for that permit.
yeah, let me pull that up and see if I can figure it out.
I can do the same.
The good thing is the planning board handles that part too. And here's another silly question. Maybe it makes no difference. The town buying HVAC equipment directly, so we get rebates, or we require in the contract that any rebates are delivered to the town or go back to the project. I mean, is there any advantage to that, Rob?
I think you'd still be
Or is it
eligible for rebates through the utility company, even if it's through a contractor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And I don't know about IRA money, whether that's any of this stuff is going to be eligible for. Probably we wouldn't get any. I don't know what the application time frame is for that kind of stuff.
yeah, I don't think we've done any early procurements on HVAC equipment. I don't know if I'd recommend it just off the top of my head, given, maybe perhaps warranty implications, or, during that 1 year period where you're in the building and there's callbacks, and then, the subcontractor saying, well, you bought the unit, it's not it's problem's not on my end, sort of thing. So it could get messy, but.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. It'll stop us from doing crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we pre-purchased, generators, kind of solid end units like that, or, but yeah, never HVAC equipment.
Jeff, on the stormwater, it's like the threshold is 12,500 square feet of area being disturbed. And then the timeline for noticing, et cetera, is the same as for the site plan.
Right.
So
But it's disturbance. It's not necessarily new work or,
it says, any activity for proposed commercial, industrial, or institutional use that will disturb less than 12,500 square feet is exempt.
okay, less than 12. Okay, so 12,000. Yep. All right.
So would that include, tearing up the asphalt and reloaming the existing driveway off Conway Street? And then perhaps that new parking area. So we're probably gonna hit that threshold, aren't we?
Probably the entire limits of work, right, that we identify.
Yep.
So
I
we'll
guess-
need that.
Yeah. I guess the only other thing, Chris, I didn't hear municipal in that in that list of uses, so I don't know whether that's the
Well, that's actually the subject of a court case that we've been involved in.
Okay.
So no comment there, but
Yep.
yeah, it's true. It doesn't spell out municipal anywhere in here, and how that's affected. So maybe there's some wiggle room there.
Does the existing footprint of the brick building count as disturbance? I mean, you're working entirely inside it.
Right.
And
I would think it'd just be the new addition area and whatever, site work is needed for the parking.
yeah, disturbance, does that include existing asphalt?
Typically it
So-
has, at least in our experience in Deerfield, but yeah,
Mhm.
there may
So
be a
like-
different opinion.
100 by 125 is 12.5. I don't know what the dimensions of the new addition and stuff are, so we'll
Well,
figure
it's
it
about 20, yeah, it's like 2,500 square feet. And so, we're probably gonna have 10,000 square feet where we're ripping up all the asphalt, reloaming and.
Yep.
Yeah. Trenching to the street with new stormwater lines.
Yep.
So what does that mean? Jeff, you got to draft a stormwater report?
It just means that we'll need to get into the stormwater, a little bit more in detail than, we might have otherwise. So we'll just need to understand what those requirements are and what standards we'll need to meet,
Okay.
particularly with the new, there'll be some trade-off obviously with the new and existing parking, but with that expanded area on the west side, we'll just need to make sure we consider that.
So that seems pretty good for project timeline and scheduling, Krista. Unless you have anything else you want to follow up on?
Well, the only other thing was, so Julie just mentioned, we might ask the planning board if they can schedule to a little later in December, potentially, just to give us a little more breathing room. And then I did want to check with the committee members. So we had proposed a standing committee meeting time of, I think, it's the second Friday of every month at 11 a.m. And Kathy, I think you said that might not work for you. So just wanted to check if, Kathy, I can't recall, did you just have a long conflict with that time?
I didn't have a conflict. I was wondering if Julie would have her work, but
Yeah, I had a conflict with that time, but and that runs through April, but sometimes I would be able to make it, and I think maybe between Kathy and I, we could work with it if this remains a good time for everybody else.
Yeah, I was gonna say the other option is just if folks are open to doing, 10 a.m. to 11 or, some other hour in on those days, that's fine by me as well. Just wanted to check and see what other people's availability is.
That was on a Friday?
Yeah, so this would be second Friday of every month, so in the short term, that's like November 8th, December 13th, January 10th.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that works.
we could probably make that work on our end.
And then I guess the other question that Julie just asked is monthly from the committee perspective often enough? I know some of the conversations we're having here today are pretty in the weeds, so it'd probably be, project team meetings instead. But just don't want to make sure we get in a situation where you guys don't have the direction you need from the committee.
Right.
Obviously, Tim and I will, be attending, smaller project team meetings as needed. But yeah, if you feel like more frequent is better, just let us know.
Okay.
So is it 10 or 11?
So I think we had initially looked at 11 a.m. And Julie, that doesn't work for you for a bit, at least.
It's 10 okay.
Yeah, good question. Julie, would 10 or 10:30 work better?
10 would be better, yes.
Worse for me, sir. Yeah. All right, well, I can send around an email, we can figure it out. But yeah, maybe tentatively we'll move it to 10 a.m.
For this before. So do build it, I don't, it's because of the masonry or. That talks about there being the ability. For a historic building. Is that necessary? We have something.
I'm having a hard time hearing whoever's speaking.
Yeah,
Try again.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we talked before, a long time ago, about the brick on the old building. And the worry about it might have spalling problems if it's too well insulated and you get water build up in it that freezes. And the previous architect that we were working with said that for historic buildings, you can get relief on the energy code if you need to for historic purposes. So I'm wondering if that's necessary for this building, and if so, if we need to get started on whatever we have to do for that.
Well, I mean, so we're planning on putting 2 inches of closed cell foam on the brick on the inside of the masonry, and that's enough insulation. So it's not too much insulation, but it's enough to really help with the energy efficiency of the building. But it's not so much that it's going to cause the problems of freezing and deterioration of the masonry from moisture. So,
This will help too.
yeah. Well, pardon me.
The gutters will help too by keeping
The
water
gutters will
off.
help too. Yep. Yeah. Sure. I mean, Rich, do you have anything to weigh in on in terms of masonry and protecting it and I know the projects that you and I have worked on in the past. This is the approach we've taken insulating these unreinforced masonry walls.
From an insulation standpoint, no, nothing really.
Right, okay. I think it's an important question, and it's one that we've looked at and we've analyzed in previous projects. We feel good about our approach on this.
Yeah, I mean, usually you just fur them out,
Right,
but yeah, how you do that, depending on what kind of insulation you use, ends up varying the situation a lot.
right.
One other thing that we're gonna need to, considering, thermal things, this is on the new building, but that whole canopy, if there's, a need for a thermal break between the exterior structure and everything, that's definitely something that gets complicated and lately seems to be left until the very end of the project.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we're going to be looking at all those kinds of details in terms of thermal break, energy efficiency, making sure that we're meeting the code, and I don't know if Deerfield is Deerfield adopted the opt-in specialized code.
We have,
Makes it a little
Yeah.
easier.
I think we have the previous iteration of that done that, but we haven't adopted the new one.
We'll work through those details though. It's a good point, Rich.
Anything else on scheduling or project timeline for the moment?
I'm good on my end, I think.
Yeah, nope.
Okay, so just wanted, next item real quick, just funding. So obviously special town meeting, we got approval to have the 3.8 million from CPC added to the budget for this project. And of course, that'll cover the, existing historical building. The $4 million earmark for, from, Congress, that has to be accessed through, USDA. And so I know Jeff and Kuhn Riddle have been helping out with, getting an environmental report done for that so that they could just do their due diligence and give us access to those funds. I think the last item on that is, well, two things. One is, environmental risk. So Rob, I can't recall if we had a chance to touch base, but there's a section of the environmental report about environmental risk, and we need to see if we need to get like some kind of report done. And I think Dan had mentioned that he would take care of that, but it probably warrants a separate conversation.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just on, we did the asbestos lead report from a couple of years ago. So I don't know what they'll require if they have something more up to date that they need. But I can forward you an email about that.
Okay.
And then the other thing was the SHPO. So USDA was hoping to just meet with us to just fully understand, the historical aspect of the project. So I think I looped in you, Dan, Mary, and Charles and Karen. I can't recall if we found a date.
It's
So let me
it's
just pull that.
tomorrow. Isn't it tomorrow at 10?
No, I think we were looking at the 23rd or the 24th.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was 23rd.
Yeah, if 23rd works for folks, that's what I'll send back to them. So just wanted to make sure we nailed that down. 23rd, let me just make sure that works for me.
We should include Tom in on that too now.
Right, great.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
let me
what-
send
so-
it. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Charles.
No, I was just we have a meeting to schedule for tomorrow. Maybe it's the wrong one. I mean, I have
I think
something.
we had, I think we initially wanted to look at scheduling this meeting for Friday and then realized that Tim is going to be on a jet plane,
Right,
so to
right,
speak.
right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so let me circle back around on the 23rd. I just know I potentially have a conflict that morning, but I can find a time that day.
Okay.
I think that'll be a relatively quick meeting with them. They just wanted to understand, what the proposed changes to the historic structure are so that they can complete their letter to SHPO and send it off, because unfortunately
Right.
they have to do that. So, all right, I'll circle
Okay.
back around. And other than that, I don't, any other project updates, thoughts from anyone?
Well, one thing I want to mention is we're meeting with OTO tomorrow, who is our hazmat consultant, and we're going to review the existing hazmat reports that were done and confirm whether or not they are adequate moving forward for bid and construction, and mitigation, or whether or not we need to have new reports done based on how long ago they were completed. So I'm going to have an update on that next week. See on those conversations.
Okay, so we might have what we need from that to submit to USDA potentially then. Because that hazmat piece that was a question for them.
Right. So we'll find out from Ash or from OTO whether those reports are adequate for going forward.
Charles, forgive me if you've already answered this a while back, but do we need to do new borings in the addition footprint, or do we have what we need, or even test pits?
Well, we are going to have a new. We're actually that's another item on our agenda tomorrow with OTO is the geotech, and we will need a couple borings there. Rich,
Okay.
right? You thinking maybe borings on opposite corners of the building or something?
I leave that to the geotechnical engineer and decide what's best for them to determine their profiles.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Sorry, but I have to bounce. So thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
You, Tim.
Yeah,
Thank
me
you.
too.
All right. Bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.
I think we can probably adjourn at this point. So thanks everyone, Charles and Rob, and I'll send you guys an email about
Okay, great.
So
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging in, Jason and Rich.
all right. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.